Hi. In the overview in Chapter 1 of Recovering Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, John Piper gives a definition of each, manhood and womanhood, and then an explanation of the words and phrases used in the definition. Here is his intro to giving the definition of manhood. This leads me, then, to attempt at least a partial definition of manhood and womanhood. This is risky business. Every word we choose could be misunderstood. Unsympathetic readers could jump to conclusions about practical implications that are not implied. I would simply plead for the application of that great principle of good criticism. Before assessing an author's position, express an understanding of it in a way the author would approve. I would commend the following descriptions of masculinity and femininity for consideration. It will be very important to read them in the light of the subsequent comments. These are not exhaustive descriptions of all that masculinity or femininity mean, but they are intended to embrace both married people and single people. Even when I illustrate manhood and womanhood in the dynamics of a marriage relationship, I hope single people will see an application to other relationships as well. The definitions are not exhaustive, but they touch all of us. They are an attempt to get at the heart, or at least an indispensable aspect of manhood and womanhood. So here is the one for manhood, the definition. At the heart of mature masculinity is a sense of benevolent responsibility to lead, provide for, and protect women in ways appropriate to a man's differing relationships. Then he continues. I just want to zoom in because he goes through each phrase in that definition and gives some comments. But I wanted to zoom in on two of them. The one that says the word responsibility and the word to lead. These are his comments in those two sections. The burden of the word responsibility is to stress that masculinity is a God-given trust for the good of all his creatures, not a right for men to exercise for their own self-exaltation or ego satisfaction. It is less a prerogative than a calling. It is a duty, an obligation, and charge. Like all God's requirements, it is not meant to be onerous, or burdensome. But it is nevertheless a burden to be borne, and which in Christ can be borne lightly. The word responsibility is chosen to imply that man will be uniquely called to account for his leadership, provision, and protection in relation to women. This is illustrated in Genesis 3, verse 9, when God says to Adam first, "Where are you?" Eve had sinned first, but God does not seek her out first. Adam must give the first account to God for the moral life of the family in the Garden of Eden. This does not mean the woman has no responsibility, as we will see. It simply means that man bears a unique and primary one. Then the phrase, to lead. One problem with language is that words tend to carry very different connotations for different people. Hence the word lead will sound strong and domineering to some, but moderate and servant-like to others. Then he makes this comment, the aim of leadership is not to demonstrate the superiority of the leader, but to bring out all the strengths of people that will move them forward to the desired goal. In Ephesians 5, verses 28 and 29, the wife is pictured as part of the man's body, as the church is part of Christ's body. So in loving his wife, a man is loving himself. This is clearly an application to marriage of Jesus' command, love your neighbor as yourself. This rules out a leadership that treats a wife like a child. A husband does not want to be treated that way himself. Moreover, Christ does not lead the church as his daughter, but as his wife. He is preparing her to be a fellow heir, not a servant girl. Any kind of leadership that is in the name of Christ-like headship tends to produce in a wife Any kind of leadership that in the name of Christ-like headship tends to produce in a wife personal immaturity or spiritual weakness or insecurity through excessive control or picky supervision or oppressive domination has missed the point of the analogy in Ephesians chapter 5. Christ does not create that kind of wife. So I thought those were very good comments, and I just zoomed in on the two that meant a lot to me, the comments that he made. The next time we will look at his definition of womanhood, and then maybe again a couple of the phrases that he uses and how he describes what he means by those phrases. I'm going to link to a video that I did based on readings from Mere Christianity about marriage. Do JWs view marriage as divine covenant, binding for life, as the Bible teaches?